okay. So, uh, shall we
Yeah,
start
we can
from our
start.
side? We will introduce you to the participants first, ma'am.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session of our 6-day faculty development program. Today, for this session, we are honored to have with us Dr. Sonal Ayyappan, Associate Professor in Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science at SMS School of Engineering and Technology, Ernakulam. Dr. Sonal Ayyappan has over 20 years of academic experience, having been a part of SEMS since 2004. Throughout her distinguished career, she has made valuable contributions in teaching, research, and academic innovation. Her expertise spans areas including artificial intelligence, medical imaging systems, information security, and intelligent computational techniques. She completed her PhD from SRM University, Chennai, and today she will be delivering a session on DL and intelligent applications in healthcare, a topic that highlights the transformative role of deep learning in modern healthcare systems and intelligent medical solutions. On behalf of Department of CSC, Sripati, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Sonal Ayyappan and invite her to begin the session. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, you are not audible. You are on the mute mode, I think. Can you
Am
please?
I now audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that warm welcome as well as a sweet introduction about me. Talking about deep learning, and I'm directly going into the subject because I know it is a working day, as well as many of you people will be going back home, and maybe some will be after work also. So I would like to just give an overview because we are all familiar with deep learning as well as intelligent applications, machine learning, AI, data science, and everything. So I just wanted to concentrate on, because I did my PhD in this area, something related, was not completely healthcare, but I do my research in healthcare, as well as I have some projects with me where in healthcare also I do projects with students in healthcare. So I just wanted to put a small light on deep learning as well as intelligent applications in healthcare. So going directly, this is my agenda. To keep our session structured and mathematically rigorous, we have a roadmap: introduction to deep learning, why deep learning is critical for healthcare, core intelligent application, real world use cases, challenges, and ethical consideration, as well as future outlook. So we will be looking one by one into what are all these things. Maybe some will be very familiar to you and some may be new. So kindly you can put your questions in the chat box whenever one needed. So what is deep learning? So everyone knows a specialized subset of AI and ML and machine learning. It uses multi-layer artificial neural networks, as we all know. It is basically a neuron, and that is how it works. So deep learning is highly a specialized subset of machine learning. Physiologically and structured, it is inspired by the biological, visual, and sensory cortexes. In classical machine learning, as we all know, because the machine has to train itself. Nowadays the data is so abundant in nature that manually working on a machine, it is very difficult. It takes a lot of time. I don't say that it is impossible, but it takes a lot of time. So instead of that, we have used machines for making it learn. For example, if we have a film, a movie that has been released. So in previous days, we used to go see the movie, or we would either our friends will be going, we will be going and communicating with them how the genres are, how are the characters, what is the story, and if we feel interested, then we move out for that movie. But nowadays, what we all do is that once the film is released or before releasing it itself, we give like we give importance to, or we depend upon our mobile phones, or the reviews that come on that, the ratings that come on that, the different type of reviews that in that reviews. Almost everyone who have seen the film, they will be putting their genres, their likings, their opinion about the movie, and from that we come to a conclusion whether we need to see it on the theater or whether we need to see it on OTP. So this is the way it goes. Now we all know that how it works. Machine is learned. The data which comes into those are all taken. NLP comes into existence. Natural language processing, where languages are put into small, I would say, chunks, where only the needed ones are taken, and then it is being analyzed. And these are all machine learning techniques that users takes care of. So AI, machine learning, as well as neural networks, deep learning, reinforcement learning, these all go together. And there are some structured manner, there are unstructured manner to work it out. So now coming to deep learning, why deep learning? Why it is not enough that we learn the machine and then keep it there itself? Why should we go beyond that? So that is the topic of the day, and I will be putting a little bit of light on why this is being used. So it uses a multi-layer artificial neural network inspired by the human brain. We all know that human brains always works with and neurons and protons and all those things. So the neurons, they connect to other neurons, and it goes on. The machines are, or it likes like a machine. Whenever there is a signal on a neuron, it is passed to the next, a reflex action goes on, and the whole system, the neural network, also works like that. There are some networks where it goes forward only. There are some networks where there is a feedback. When there is a loop coming back, it again adjusts. For example, whenever a small student in school learns something. So first of all, he tries to read. He or she, our children do at our home. They try to read the content what they have heard, and in the first go, it's not all the content will be taken into their brain. They repeatedly read once again, and again, and then the machine learns. It learns one by one, as we say, it is a revision. So it goes on, and then the brain learns by itself that what we are supposed to do. So that's the same concept we use in machine learning also. So it excels at processing vast amount of unstructured data. That is the main defined keyword that has to be mainly mentioned when we will always talk about AI or machine learning or data science or whatever it is. So there are unstructured data, examples like images, raw text, genomic sequences. All these are unstructured data. When we take data, it is all in numbers or in figures or in something like that. So it is according to our will or our usage that we'll have to train this. We all have heard about CSV file, a comma separated file. In that comma separated file, there are some numbers. It's basically an Excel sheet saved as .csv. So in that, almost every value in that represents something. It may be, for example, we are taking a feature or a CSV for a vehicle. So it will be giving the time when the vehicle was on, all the parameters which. Is the screen available? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I just skipped somewhere. Just a minute. Yeah. So it will be the kilometer it was passing away, all the parameters which has come to the, or that is taken in that particular journey. So with that, it can be a CSV with 1,000 or millions of rows, and from that, or maybe there will be n number of columns also, and not all columns are important. So that is why it is always known as an unstructured data. To put it very simple, I'll put it in another way. That is, we are all on now because it's already 4:30, it's 5 o'clock, and we are all on our mobile phones. The participants, whoever has entered into this meeting, they are all on their digital gadgets. So we all know that it is the screen is available on your gadget, okay, and you can see the PPT also, the slide also in that. So how do we take features from the screen? Basically, screen, as we all know, it is a matrix, a 2x2 matrix. It is having many number of rows of pixels as well as a column of pixels. Now, in each pixel, as we all know, it is a picture element. So in that picture element, what all informations can be stored? It is basically a combination of RGB, and those RGB can be represented using an 8-bit. R red itself can be represented using an 8-bit value. Red, blue, green, all. So initially for a single pixel itself, it has 24 different values. Whether it is R or G or B, that depends. So we usually go into a concept that it is in the order of the first 8 bits are R, the second 8 bits are G, and the third 8 bits are blue. So this is the information that is for each and every pixel on the screen, whether it is a mobile or a display or like a computer or a laptop. Those informations will be available. So you can imagine the enormous data just taking the number of pixels. If we put it onto or map it onto a CSV file, how many data will be there? So each and every time each screen goes on, so much information is put into this. I just wanted to say why this data is, or you can visually see that how much data is there when we take the content of a screen. Okay, so that is what is known as unstructured. So it is all in numbers. So in that case, how do you say, or how do you try to process which data has to be taken, or how data has to be taken, which all data has to be taken? How do you make this unstructured data into structured data? So it's not so easy. So that is why deep learning comes into existence. So it is one step ahead the machine learning. It learns complex patterns automatically without requiring explicit human programming. That comes in deep learning. It goes, as the name itself says it goes deep into, so that it learns the machine perfectly. So a brief history of AI with deep learning. This is already taken from the net. Almost everyone knows all these taglines which has been put. Those are some inventors or discoverers who tried to find out this. So as we all see, it's not an overnight fluke, but a result of decades of architectural revolution marked by the golden ages, the first stage, the first dark age, the second golden age, as well as the second dark age. So initially that was a artificial neuron that came into existence, a multiple mapping to one mapping, multiple inputs and one output only. Then came the Turing test, where, as we all have learned about the Turing machines and everything, the modern computers came into existence. Then came the AI birth, where we used to earlier learn about the A star algorithms, A algorithms, and everything. Backtracking all came in that. Then came the perceptron. Then came XOR problem. Then the backpropagation. These are some things which we use nowadays. The backpropagation, SVM, CNN, convolution neural networks. In 2012 with AlexNet using massive parallel processing on NVIDIA GPUs. Nowadays it is the area where GPUs has to come into existence. As I already said, there are a lot of data that has come along, so that it is not comfortable with, or it is not applicable on a small CPU which works on. We all work on Colab. In Colab also, there are some CPUs which works. But for going abroad, again after that, when we come to images, there it is a need of that. It is not that CPU is enough for processing. GPU has to come into existence. So nowadays GPU is it's the hero nowadays. By 2024 and 25, models like OpenAI, DeepSeek introduced advanced multi-step clinical reasoning. Towards, as researchers, we are no longer building isolated point models. We are building on top of foundational multi-model biotechnical medical frameworks. We all know that we have ChatGPTs, LLMs coming on. There are many things which have come which works on these machine learning itself. I'll tell you a very interesting example. When we come on ChatGPT, have you ever heard that, or have you ever thought about, whenever we give some question, for the first time when we give some question to ChatGPT, it gives you an answer. It doesn't know who you are. But after that, another question upon that, it gives you an answer which is in connection to the previous question you have asked. So by the time, or by half an hour, by the questions you have given and the answers you take, It's something like a Viva question. That is what we do. When we give a prompt, it gives you an answer. If we are satisfied with the answer, we go along with it. Or if we are not satisfied with the answer, then the next portion or the next prompt is going. And by that time, by something like an HR, half an hour later, the ChatGPT or any LLMs you work on, it tries to understand what type of a person you are, what are your interests, or what are you good in. It takes your name, your LinkedIn profile, everything is on the air. So, how does it do it? And these are all data that is given onto the net for the learning purposes. I, as Sonal Ayyappan, when gives my data onto the ChatGPT, it learns, it gives me the answer, as well as for the next, as the questions which I give, according to that, it gives you an answer. Something similar prompt when it comes along, it gives the answer there also. I also give some inputs whenever we upload some files, when we upload some papers, and you ask for a summary. These are all getting trained by the ChatGPT. So how does it do? It's enormous data which manually cannot be compiled. So their deep learning and all those the jargon words, it all comes into existence. Now, coming to the next portion, AI with deep learning. Deep learning is transforming the way machines understand, learn, and interact with complex data. Deep learning mimics neural networks of the human brain. It enables computers to autonomously uncover patterns and make informed decisions from vast amount of unstructured data. I've already gone through this, so needn't replicate on more on this. Now, yes, we all know. Again, I just wanted to put a small Venn diagram. This is all common. The diagram is highly useful for clarifying the terminologies in academic papers. We all use these words again and again and again. So, where does this all come into? AI, that is a broader circle. It gives the artificial intelligence as though the machine is working as a human. Then comes machine learning. Inside, it's a small subset inside AI, which includes linear regressions, random forests, support vector machine. It gives you classifications. It gives you categorization. It helps the data that is available in artificial intelligence to get ordered. It can be structured, supervised, unsupervised, labeled, and this goes on. Now, inside that, when the data again gets a little bit larger, more than what the machine learning can understand, or it needs to give you some reply back, then deep learning comes into existence. It is a subset of machine learning that relies exclusively on multi-layered artificial neural network architecture to automatically learn the representation layers. Number of layers when compared to the machine learning, as we all have already understood, the CNN, all those architectures, I'm not going into it. We have all done it. So machine learning, much more layers are added to machine learning, so it becomes deep learning. Next comes data science. Data science is something not inside all this, but it is also something common with, it can be common with the AI. It's something like a Venn diagram. The Venn diagram, there is an intersection. Data science is not completely into, but if the artificial intelligence systems as well as the machine learning and the deep learning has to work, it has to work with data, thoroughly data used in order to process all the data. Data science is there, but technology or techniques used to order these data, there we need machine learning, data, deep learning, as well as AI also. Now, a small comparison between what is machine learning and deep learning. So I'll just quickly go on. There are some basic ideas upon which this goes on. So there are some common features that makes machine learning and deep learning different. That is, one is feature extraction. We have already understood what are features. How are those features taken? How are those taken as well as analyzed? And we'll have to give a definition for those features. In machine learning, features are manually selected. In deep learning, features are entirely automated and learned end to end. Then comes data scaling. In data scaling, the data is too much in deep learning when compared to machine learning. Then the data requirement. it works for very medium data sets. Deep learning, it works for large amount of data. Now the complexity, machine learning is less complex when compared to deep learning. Learning process, it's not end to end, but deep learning, it goes one by one. And from the starting till the end, it goes on. Next comes model complexity. Again, model complexity is less when compared to the deep learning models. Uh, Machine learning is faster as well as it's very less complex. Interpretability, each easy to understand and explain. Machine learning. In deep learning, it is harder to interpret. It has some loopholes which cannot be understood, or it has to take another prompt to find out what the answers are. Later on comes hardware requirement. As I already had mentioned, machine learning needs less power as well as it can run on a CPU, which is available on our machines. Deep learning, it really needs GPUs as well as HPCs in those level so as to work a little bit faster and give better performances. Use cases in deep learning, it is image recognition, NLP, speech recognition, where the data is much more heavier than what is in spam detection. Most probably, you can just initially we used to say you all may be knowing what is HTML. It is hypertext markup language. So I just wanted to say an analogy. It has nothing to do with AI or deep learning. I just wanted to say about the analogy. Hypertext markup language. Now, what becomes markup language? Those days we used to say that markup language is something where audio, video, images can be put into. Those are considered to be much more heavier than the text data. So, similarly here also, machine learning are most probably most commonly used for textual data. I don't say that it is not at all used for images. Yes, it is used, but most it gives a lot of time. The systems may crash. It goes on. But deep learning, it is used for heavy data, something like image recognition, speech recognition, video, deep fake, and all those things, all those type of projects. Hope you all people are with me, all the participants. Am I going too fast? Hello?
No, ma'am.
Am I going too fast?
No, ma'am. No.
Okay. Thank you.
We can follow you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, again, I'll just put some light on the tree. Yeah, ma'am. Okay. Taking the training time also, how much of time it takes because of this time complexity. That is, it's simple at low level tasks. Machine learning works very perfectly, but deep learning it takes lot of data, and the training time also has to, because the GPU has come into existence. Then the training time it goes on, or with the CPU it is not at all possible. Okay, going to the next, there are just a brief on the type of neural networks. As I already said, all these things, we are all familiar with the small abbreviations, FNN, CNN, RNN, GANs, and as well as autoencoders and transformer networks. Talking a little bit about feed-forward neural network, these are standard multi-layer perceptrons. They are best suited for the tabular medical data, such as patient demographics, where they stay, as well as cholesterol levels and static clinical lab reports. That's enough for that is well handled by this feed-forward neural network. When the next CNN, that is convolution neural networks, it uses weight sharing and pooling layers to achieve spatial translation invariances. This makes them to undisputedly gold standards for pixels, such as radiology scans like CT scan. I'll come to it again. Uh, Dermatology, photographs, and pathology. Wherever we all say that neural networks well is played with images, not with videos, basically images. So all those scans. I'm now into healthcare. Why are we using? I'll all be explaining about all these networks in healthcare alone. So convolution neural networks, it works with all the radiological aspects, like all the pictures in two-dimensional. Next is uh, recurrence neural network. We call it RNN. These networks maintain a hidden state over time, allowing them to process sequential inputs. They are best for temporal streams such as a real-time ECG signal or a longitudinal patient need. That is, ECG signal goes on real time. So in real time, what we have to analyze, all these are analyzing networks, or it gives you some conclusions, some predictions, some classifications. So in RNN, what it does is that real time signals, which has to be monitored on over a time, one after the other, that works on with RNN. Next comes the generative adversarial networks. As you all know, it is generative from the name itself. I'll tell about, all may be familiar with DeepSeek or deep fakes. DeepSeek and deep fakes is that a person's face is being imposed on the other, and we feel that someone, we had a, in all these Facebooks and everything, we had a AI generated video, something like Nirmala Sitharaman. She was telling about a video where she said that 21,000 rupees, if invested within no time, it will be doubled and tripled, and you will get a very large amount. We all knew that Nirmala Sitharaman, as well as in India, that is not at all possible. So those are some. That is one image, or that is one video where deep fake has been done, or AI has been used massively to create or generate something like, which is not real. Similarly, we had a lot of initially DeepSeek and deepfake in all those newspapers and newses that that used to come on TV. Uh, Instead of Trump, someone else is talking. Instead of all those political leaders, someone else is working on. It's not morphing basically. It is another technique where we feel that the original person is it's not feeling, the original person is being replaced by someone else, and it is being faked to the audience. So usually generative adversarial networks, we call it at GANs, it is composed of a generator as well as a discriminator. It takes a lot of time. I worked on this generative as well as the discriminator. Generator, if you try to generate a new video using the CPU alone, your system really crashes. Now, using this deep learning, we can implement, because we are using all those GPUs and everything which is already incorporated in Colab. So it takes a lot of time, crashes also happen, but generator and discriminator on a single machine, it is really a little bit difficult to be done, because the data is enormous. And I'll just tell you an example where generator comes into existence. It is like deepfake, as I already said, a photo that is being replaced by someone else's photo. So uh, how is that done, and how is that becoming so so realistic? So pixel by pixel, as we already said, that I said about the pixel, because it's very numerous. Pixel by pixel, it is being replaced by the features, the skin tone, as well as the skin color of the person who has to be replaced. We never feel that the face has been replaced by someone else's face. Even the neck won't be available, only the face will be taken and it will be replaced. So how do you match that? That is the generator. That is the capacity of a generator in generative adversarial networks. So it is composed of a generator as well as a discriminator, competing in a zero-sum game. That is, it goes hand in hand. GANs are highly useful in medical researches for data augmentation. So now talking about a new word, again, for research purposes, we have already done data augmentation. We have a limited set of data, yes. So deep learning and machine learning, it works with enormous data. From Kaggle, we have got only 6,000 images for a particular surveillance network, or maybe a crowd counting network or something like that. Now, in order to get an accuracy or a precision or a recall, or for all those performance matrices, 6,000 is a very small number. Now, how do you do that, or how do you increase that? So that's where data augmentation comes into existence. We generate synthetic images to train other models where data is needed. So the 6,000, using the 6,000 images, patches can be taken and it can be generated to maybe 6 million or more than that. 10 times, 15 times abroad, you can do that. So that is where generative adversarial networks usually come into. Usually, that is taken care there. And the next, nowadays, what all these have been already done, a lot of researches have been done in these areas. And now we are in the area where transformers and encoders are into existence. Transformers use self-attention to parse global sequences dependencies. They are the engine behind medical NLP, parsing dense clinical records and predicting complex protein sequences. I'll talk about these protein sequences in the coming slides. Now, just we have already said all of this, why deep learning is so important in healthcare. There is data explosion, handles an exponential growth of electronic health records and medical images. I'll tell you one example for this. Whenever we go for an MRI scan, almost everyone will be knowing, hope so that no one has taken it. But when we have already seen in images, because that was my area where I did my PhD. So it is electronic health records, that is EHR. Electronic health record, it not only includes the name of the patient, name of the or details about the patient, like what is the OPID, when was the last visit, what have we paid, what all tests we have done. Electronic health records also includes the scans we have done, the diagnosis we have done, the blood results we have taken, what all can be taken about for that patient, that all comes under the electronic health record. So if we go just for a consultation, the electronic health record for that patient is very less. That's all. But when there is a follow-up, when you have to take maybe MRI scans once in 2 years, again ultrasound scan, like after some treatments or something, you have to take all those things, then the electronic health records comes in a huge number. Now, whenever a MRI scan is taken, in one particular scan, we have seen X-ray images. When we used to take X-ray images earlier, or whenever we have a breakage in our bones, X-ray is the best thing. But if you want to know something, what is happening in your brain or in your tissues, in your glands, something like that, naturally they prefer CT scan or ultrasound or even MRI also, to be clear. All these are different in different methods, and all these give different informations for something seen in CT scan cannot be evident in MRI. Don't feel that MRI is always above CT. No,